Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, and I just want to say thanks to Fabian and the rest of the team for inviting me and inviting us to participate in this panel discussion. So as you can see above, this is L'Aperitivo, and today we're just going to talk a little bit about a few brief topics covering things like opportunities post-pandemic in the travel industry, some DEI topics, and a little bit about sustainability. So I'm joined here with three great panelists. Here to my left, we have, I'm going to do a quick introduction here, and then I'll allow them to just say a few words about themselves here. But we've got Jennifer Wilson-Buttigieg, who's the co-president of Valerie Wilson Travel, of course, an award-winning travel management firm known as an industry leader and particularly known in the United States. Next to her, we have Richard Barnes, who Richard is the founding partner of Almont Global. Almont Global is a one-stop shop development and Marcom support in the luxury, tourism, and lifestyle sectors. And last but not least, we have Alonso Diaz Etienne, who is the CEO of Exacorp One. And Exacorp is an owner of many hotel assets, including the one that you all, I think, know, the Hotel Thompson, the luxury hotel I think you were at the other night. So just want to welcome, join me in welcoming the panelists here today. My name is Auston Matta. I'm the marketing manager for IGLTA. If you're not familiar with IGLTA, we're the International LGBTQ+ Travel Association. Essentially, our mission is to advance LGBT travel around the world. We do that with more than 12,000 tourism partners in 80 different countries. We're actually hosting our own event this year in Milan in just a few weeks. So if you're interested in LGBT tourism, the 26th through 29th of October, I invite you to join us there. So just before we get into the panel discussion, I just want to turn it to each of the three to just give like a quick 1-minute introduction to the audience and let us know who you are, what you do, and why you're sitting up here on stage today.
Jennifer Wilson-Buttigieg, and that second half of my last name always gets confused. Not related to Mayor Pete. Second-generation family business founded by my mom. Swore I would never stay longer than 2 years. And 30-plus years in, I absolutely love this industry. I wear 3 hats, co-president of Valerie Wilson Travel. I sit on the executive team of Frosch because we were acquired in April 2021, and I am assisting with JP Morgan Chase as we were acquired by them in May of 22 with their ICs. And my passion point tends to be government affairs, the PAC, but speaking in one voice because travel's so powerful.
Wonderful, thank you. Richard, do you want to say just a few words about yourself?
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Richard Barnes. I'm one of the founding partners of Almont Global. Almont Global was set up a couple of years in the UK between myself, Yuri Horovi, who is a virtuoso travel advisor, and Mary Gostelow, who is very well known in the industry as kind of the guru of luxury travel. Many people know Mary. We set it up to be a kind of a one-stop shop for development and marketing. We're working with DMOs in different countries. We also established around ourselves what we call an advisory board, which is very illustrious and includes, of course, Philippe Boyen, who you saw yesterday, other people like Kostas Christ, who's probably the world's most renowned expert in sustainability. We have Susie Ellis, the chairwoman of the Global Wellness Institute. Fraser Hickox, probably one of the best known people in the world in terms of hotel technology. Nick Pilbeam, the former head of Reed. He was running World Travel Market and ATM, and the list goes on. Edie Rodriguez, also, who was previously CEO of Crystal Cruises and Croisière Pendant, and is now on the board of Saudi Tourism. So yeah, we set this up to try and really help destinations with a kind of a think tank or a dream team of people that could come together with ideas and help them push their destination in the right direction. So that's why we're here.
Wonderful, thank you. And Alonso, you want to introduce yourself?
Welcome to Madrid. I think it's after 12, so...
Salud.
Salud.
Cheers.
I am the CEO of Exacorp One. Exacorp One is a family business. It's a third generation. My grandfather was originally from León. Spain, and he embarked to Mexico in the late 20s of last century, founded a business there, pursued the American dream, or the Mexican dream, I would say. And he started building hotels. We are now owners of over 25 properties around Mexico, the US, and Spain. We are the largest franchisee for Marriott in Latin America. Our operating company has around 6,000 employees. And we just opened our second property here in Madrid under the Thompson brand with Hyatt.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, let's jump into the conversation. So we want to hit on a few different trends that are happening in the industry and the world, and of course, what is more trending than the rebound of tourism after the pandemic. So one of the first questions I want to ask, and maybe we'll just start
Sure.
with you, Jennifer. What recent change in travel or behavior have you seen in your business and company post-pandemic? And how has your business reacted to that change? Just one example that maybe you want to share.
We've broken it down into sort of three categories. The traveler who wants to stay closer to home, the one that wants to go further afield, or the one who wants to take the big leap. And we need to recognize that one size doesn't fit all for all travelers right now. And some are still hesitant, others are just dying with pent-up demand to go places. So we have to understand where they are. We may feel very comfortable where we are, but as expert advisors, we have to connect with them and what's important for them at the moment. The two most important things we've seen are time and then deep immersion in a place that either has special meaning to them from the past or a place they really want to cross off their bucket list.
Wonderful. So it's kind of like taking the nuggets from the last presentation, really listening to what your travelers are telling you, whether they're comfortable or
Very
not
much so.
comfortable, somewhere in the
Because
middle.
you may, I mean, Madrid is magical, and it's a fantastic destination, and I can think about the clients right now where it would be right, and that could be for a YPO group, it could be for a small corporate meeting, it could be a multi-generational family trip, or a honeymoon. But I can think of a whole bunch of clients where they're not ready to take their passport out yet.
Yeah.
So you have to know your audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, so travel is back, but it's back in a little bit of a different way for different people. Richard, what about you? What kind of trends have you seen in the behavior?
So I put the question to Yuri, who's running Almont Travel in the UK. He's my partner in Almont Global. What he's noticed really over summer is the fact that people they actually had this pent-up demand for travel as we thought they did. This has created massive demand in the major tourism destinations in Europe, like Paris, London, no doubt Madrid as well. He's had some clients in Paris paying up to 40,000 euros a night to be able to stay in Paris because it's been so full. London, he said that you can get no decent hotel for less than 2,000 a night through the season. So this has been, it's the highest prices ever that we've seen over the season. No doubt you've seen that as well. There have been a lot of events and festivals that have been also rekindled, that people are coming out. They want to get out and see things, do things, get active. So this is, people have been going out to the Rolling Stones at Hyde Park, Ascot, Wimbledon, that kind of thing again. So this is really, we're seeing this rekindling of people wanting to get out and do things. Of course, wellness, again, everybody's talking about wellness. But wellness is evolving, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that later on, because people are looking for something different in wellness. They don't just want to go and have the spa treatment and lay out and relax. People are looking for different things. So that's something that's evolving as well. Of course, with the Ukrainian war, a lot of Ukrainians are not only leaving Ukraine, but they're traveling during the same time. And there are actually a lot of wealthy Ukrainians spending a lot of money. So another trend that we've seen. And for some reason also this year, Mykonos has been very busy. That's one trend that we've seen from outbound, I'm talking about very high-end travelers outbound from the UK. Very limited availability. Ibiza is still going well, but the Mykonos seems to be trending as well. So a couple of trends.
Wonderful. Yeah, let's definitely get back to wellness. We can talk more about that in a minute, but maybe Alonso, from the hospitality hotel side, what kind of trends have you seen post-pandemic, and what are you doing to take advantage of those trends?
Well, they say that the three most repeated words in history are "this time is different." I'm not so sure, but we are quite intrigued by the role of technology in luxury travel. Technology has had a significant impact in our lives during the pandemic with, video conferencing, e-commerce boomed. It became more common. So the way that the technology is going to affect the luxury space is quite interesting. If you look at luxury, there are 3 or 4 elements that make something luxurious. I guess the first thing is it needs to be an aesthetic experience. It needs to be beautiful. Secondly, it needs to be of quality. And that means better performance, more durability, whatever the characteristic is, it needs to be better. And I guess the third one is the uniqueness, the scarcity, the personalization. And typically luxury has been associated with the direct interaction between the subject and another person, because that is the way that you typically anticipate the need, you typically figure out what is the problem. You need a person on the other side to render the luxurious experience. But now, with technology, I think luxury is flirting with another thing that is optionality. And I'll give you an example, and this is a topic that might need a full panel, but imagine a person that is at night in her room, and instead of wanting to call downstairs to order room service, she prefers to do that in an app. That optionality is going to be part of the luxurious experience. She might still need to, or she might still want to talk to somebody and ask, what can you guys make me tonight? Or I'm not sure what I want. But she might be occupied doing some of the things and just don't want to waste any time and do it via the phone. So we're intrigued by the impact of technology in some of these little details that will enhance the luxurious experience.
That's great. Yeah, that's a really great observation. And I was just thinking about the presentation before where the gentleman was talking about like the 3 different staff people and how it's challenging to communicate that message. And I can just see how technology can really help us move forward with those challenging situations to kind of streamline some of those things, the service. Of course, it's not getting rid of the phones because you're always going to want to keep that option, but to kind of have that secondary option, which we've all been, more and more accustomed to being on my phone. I have my notes here on my phone. I was a little freaked out when I couldn't print it this morning. I thought, I can just do it here, right? So now that's really great. All right, so let's just change gears a little bit more, still on kind of post-pandemic travel. Jennifer, what would you say is maybe the greatest opportunity that arose for your business out of the pandemic, and how are you leveraging that in this travel rebound?
I'll look at it from a Valerie Wilson travel perspective and then sort of a broader one. And we were very fortunate to have been acquired twice in a rolling 12-month period. A little bit of change, bringing a lot of different culture, mission, and vision together. However, I describe it as Valerie Wilson Travel as a Frosh brand under JPMC now. And that is bringing a great deal of stability to travel, because in great times, the travel advisor might make 1X. And in more challenging times, 9/11, financial crisis, ash cloud, et cetera, we have a whole list of those, they were probably furloughed and laid off. And as we heard yesterday with Philippe, those are heart-wrenching decisions to make, particularly as privately held companies. So we now have this giant umbrella. We have this great network that we're a part of, and it gives a great deal of stability to the industry. I think if you take that same message and move it to the broad level, the role of the advisor is never more important than now. And immediately during the pandemic, it was, oh my goodness, we have to get everybody back to where they want to be, naively thinking they just wanted to go home for 2 weeks or something like that. And then that turned into those that did want to travel, what were the rules of the moment? What were the testing requirements? What were the quarantine requirements? How did we get through WTTC, the different governments and countries to work together with interoperability? And there can be some great apps out there, Sherpa, et cetera, but a luxury guest and a luxury traveler, I would say, either in the leisure vacation space or the corporate C-level space, wants to speak to somebody. They don't want an app for that. They are, because the information is not updated fast enough, and the frustration level is high. And when a frustration level is high, most people tend to retract, so they don't want to go out and explore the world. So I look at the pandemic, and I don't know if it's officially over. People, and I've certainly spoken on it, that it's an endemic. We have the media who is talking about the next variant. I think we need to recognize this is part of the world we're living in now. And I think there are many similarities, I hate to say, to 9/11. After 9/11, and as a New Yorker, New York's resilient and always would come back. However, processes and protocols were put in place, TSA, Customs Border Patrol, the 311 baggie, the shoes coming off, those didn't happen right after 9/11. Those took 2 to 3 years. So I'm really hopeful we're in this foundational stage right now, 2 to 3 years, to start figuring out what some of those new policies may be to allow our travelers to go around the globe.
Great, wonderful, great insights. And Richard, what about you from your
I think
side? Opportunities?
there are some opportunities in a couple of areas. One thing that's emerging is the all-inclusive space. There's a trend towards all-inclusive, and so, you know, people who are able to, or you know, establishments that are able to perhaps offer that are going to do well, family-oriented. You know, Hyatt became a key player there when they took the Apple Leisure Group, I think about a year or so ago. Marriott and Accor are also getting into this as well. Four Seasons will be launching an amazing new all-inclusive yacht, which you've probably heard about. It's going to blow Ritz-Carlton's yachts right out of the water, because it's going to be the same basic size but with half as many cabins. The biggest suite will be on 4 levels, but it will be all inclusive. So that's really something that is trending and is an opportunity as well. But I mean, someone spoke to me yesterday or the day before. Mary Gostelow said, but there's the tented camp in northern Thailand, which has been all-inclusive for the last 10 years. So it's been around for a while, but I think there's definitely a growing trend towards all-inclusive when it can be done, and that's something that people are very much attracted to. So yeah, and the other thing, and you were just talking about service and education, and the fact that people have to be really attracted. I know this was spoken about yesterday with Philippe. But there are also opportunities to create synergies with people within the industry, for young people to really be attracted back into the industry. It's all about it's more about emotional intelligence rather than anything else, and it's all about service. So. I know, again, apparently Simon Cooper, who made Ritz-Carlton famous through service, he's just been interviewed, and he said that even the lowliest job should be made to feel like the most important in the establishment. So that's important. We need to talk to hotels about how they train people. We heard about Saudi Arabia sending 40 students to Lausanne every week for a 1-week course. They go back then after 1 week to Saudi Arabia, and they think they've learned how to be hospitality professionals. They then become disillusioned and go off into other fields. So there's a lot to be done there. But I saw one hotel in Dubai, what was it, the one next to the Central Mall. And the staff there were absolutely fantastic. And I said, why why do you look so happy? Why are you so good? They said, the management is great with us. And so I was talking to the GM, and I said, what do you do with how do you employ staff? What do you do with them that makes them different? And he said, well, when we employ someone, I always interview the person as the last interview. And after that, we give them one day where we pick them up with a limousine. We take them in, they stay in one of our key rooms, they eat at the restaurant, and they get the 5-star experience. You can't give the 5-star experience if you haven't lived it. So we're seeing little things like that that are talking about opportunities. It's an opportunity to make people feel like they should be in the industry, and we should be working on that. And there are opportunities also that should be opening up, and we were going to talk about equality. I'm sure you're going to ask the question again. We'll get back to that later, though. But there are a lot of opportunities that are not overtly obvious per se, but that we should be thinking about.
Yeah, we will get to more about DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion in a moment. But Alonso, I don't know if you wanted to share any last opportunities that you see.
I think we look at this from a short-term perspective and also a long-term perspective. On a short-term perspective, I think everybody could take advantage of the fact that there was pent-up demand, that there is an inelastic demand, that prices are being jacked up significantly. So I guess in the short term, the big opportunity was doing yield management, making sure that you take advantage of all that excess consumer demand that is out there. So I think from a short-term perspective, in our industry, after the valley, you could make up a little bit from that. Then on a more longer term, I think we kind of entered into one of the categories that Jennifer was mentioning. We acquired in the past 18 months 5 properties in the U.S. The U.S. is the largest market for Mexican properties. We figured that a lot of people didn't want to leave the country, so we established a platform for our assets and grew there. So I think Richard also has extensive experience in Asia, and something similar is happening with China. Maybe they're being a little bit more forced to stay than the Americans, but I think that's also an opportunity that you don't have to pressure everybody to go out again into the world if they don't feel so comfortable. And that, is a challenge, but also opens up some of these opportunities.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for the insights. And yeah, I guess it's meeting your customer where they are, whether they're going to stay in their backyard or whether they're going to travel to Asia or wherever it is, trying to take advantage of those opportunities. So I want to quickly shift gears a little bit from not just travel trends post-pandemic, but another trend that is actually trending post-pandemic is DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, if you work in the tourism space, corporate space, I'm sure you've heard it, but, it's really just, in case you're not so familiar, just trying to make the world a more equitable place for people, regardless of racial equality, gender equality, sexual orientation, making your services available for people with different disabilities. So, I'm curious, Jennifer, do you have any, just any tips or any examples of things you guys have employed either in your own organization, internally or externally, and feel free to share challenges or struggles that you've had, because I think we all learn from some of the challenges as well.
True. Well, to be lighthearted, to say I'm a second-generation woman in a family business, we joke we don't bring your daughter to work day. It should be bring your child to work day. Or we should get the day off. We used to joke with Valerie about that years ago. But with all seriousness, as a leader, when you bring many different types of people together, you tend to have a greater service offering to your customer. At the end of the day, we all are in a service business. Our desire is to serve. We happen to be doing it in the space of travel. And travel, for me, is culture and cuisine religion and art, it's about seeing different places, and you have to be open enough to see them. So you need a very diverse, I personally feel you need a very diverse group of people to help bring that to life for clients. Yes, they need to have specialties in corporate leisure, meetings and incentives, finance, marketing, et cetera, but you need to have that passion. And one example of that would be right before, it was sort of my last meeting in the New York City office in March of 2020, Men's Vows, a company that we decided to partner with, gay men who want to marry gay men, didn't want someone who was a specialist in the area. They wanted a specialist in luxury travel where we could fulfill not only destinational weddings, honeymoons, 4 or 5 couple trips like we do for every other guest, and it's recognizing what's important. So they actually, Richard and Eduardo, the 2 founders, have a great platform online, and what we have been able to do is network together to say, this is the right florist, this is the right photographer, this is the right meeting planner. With the pent-up demand, we've educated their audience and their community to be able to say, closer to home, further afield, or the big leap, and the role of the advisor. So it's partnerships in many different ways. I hope that started to scratch the surface.
No, it really does. I love that. And for me, obviously working for an LGBT-based organization, you know, DEI is close to my heart. And I mean, I heard 2 really great things there, which is one, you know, if you want to reflect DEI to the customer on the outside, you have to first start within, right? And so how else are you going to create diverse products and products and services that are equitable without having internal staff who understands all the different perspectives? So I think that's really insightful. The other thing I really love that you said is, I mean, really when it comes down to it, we all want the same thing in travel. We just want to have an amazing time.
Where do you feel comfortable?
Exactly.
What
We
do you
want to go
do?
see beautiful places. We want to, you know, sample the food, the gastronomy, and everything. But you want to feel safe and you want to feel welcome. And that's, I think, where the challenges is in DEI is not every segment of the industry feels welcome or safe depending on where they go. So I think it's really important for organizations.
But not every resort or cruise line or property is designed for families either.
Sure.
So I would say it's looking at a holistic point of view of who's your customer base and where do you sort of match up supply and demand based on need.
It's great insights. Richard, do you have anything you want to share on DEI?
There's 2 sides of the coin, of course. That we're talking. You can talk about LGBT travel, but also inclusion within the industry itself, and the inequalities that exist within the industry and still will exist for some time. Especially in management. I mean, there are a very large number of women employed in hospitality worldwide, but they're not in the higher positions. In terms of travel,
Why do you think that isn't the case?
it's
right
because
now?
men are in the employment positions, and they tend to employ men, and they're misogynistic generally. So I mean, I guess that's the reason. I wouldn't. I mean. What about how? I mean, and you know, maybe within your organization, within the hotels, do you have a policy with regard to employment equality between the sexes, or is there something like that?
We don't have a policy per se, but I can tell you the facts. The fact is that we have a majority of women employed in our organization. 54% are women. We do have the policy of equal pay. I think that's a little bit basic, though. But I mean, throughout what we do, we strongly believe in the dignity of the human person, and the respect of that is essential. I am the 3rd generation of a family business. We started it in 1927. The only way that you can build something that lasts is by treating people with respect. If that doesn't happen, things don't last. People don't put up with it. So, you know, these are basic concepts that are the foundation of what we believe a successful business ought to have. and you have to respect the person and allow for that identity to flourish.
I have a question I want to pose, well, to anyone who wants to answer it. Just in the DEI space, as your organizations have been, making efforts to be more welcoming, can you share with the audience any resources or any organizations that maybe you've tapped into that others might be able to? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts, or if you don't at the moment, we'll sit on that and we'll come back to it.
Good question.
We'll come back to that one.
I would say I'm not sure I have a resource. I mean, I'm a ferocious reader, and a network of leaders that you share ideas, both good and bad, and you can be palms up, very open with. I would say in the New York City office, we needed to find a breastfeeding room because we had great advisors. There was sort of the joke that if you used the water cooler, you were going to become pregnant. And we had a lot of women, and clearly that wasn't the case, but we had a whole bunch of weddings, and there were a lot of people who became pregnant. We wanted those advisors to come back. And it sounds crazy, but they needed to pump breast milk. And these become conversations where most people start squirming.
Sure.
So we had to figure out that, unfortunately, people were like, you can go use the back closet. And I was like, absolutely not. And I would say things continue to change over the decades. And then it's not unheard of when you renovate a space now. I'm sure it's in many different offices, but you need to think about where you would want to be as well. Just a small example.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just try to put yourself in that person's shoes.
Absolutely.
Whatever individual is not feeling the equity or is not feeling like they have access, just try
Right.
to imagine how you would feel if
it
you're
was
in
you.
that situation. That's a really good tip. So I know you have a flight at 2 or a car at 2, so we're gonna try and move just quickly here. But I want to change gears just a little bit to sustainability. We had some good topics on DEI, very high level, obviously, and some traveler trends. But yeah, I'll kind of pose the question to, maybe we'll start with you, Alonso. How important do you think sustainable travel is to luxury travelers? And do you think the industry is addressing the demand?
I think it's becoming more important every day. I don't think the industry is still prepared to provide an appropriate answer because it's not easy. And I will tell you that probably the main restraint that we have is the installed base. In order for the industry, and I guess everything that we do to become more environmentally sustainable, we need to change a lot of the things that are out there. So it is relatively easy for a new property that comes into the market to adopt the necessary technology, the processes, and the policy, whatever needs to be done. If you're starting from scratch and put yourself out there and really contribute, but if you have an installed base that has a lot of weight behind it, that's going to take time. Yeah. So I think the direction is clear. The intention, I think, is also clear. If you are able to do it, you should install the change as soon as possible. But I think it's still going to take some time, unfortunately.
Yeah, time and investment. And I know, Richard, you were sharing statistics
I had a metric,
earlier.
actually, because I was just going through the papers because Virtuoso just put out a paper saying that 74% of Virtuoso travelers said they're willing to pay more to travel sustainably if they know where their money's going. Now, I don't know if they were given a leading question, like, would you be prepared to pay more, So I'm not sure exactly if how true that is and how that really fits in. People did say that the pandemic did make them think more about that. That's one of the things that came out of this survey. So that's quite interesting. But I think what we've seen during the pandemic is that a lot of rhetoric was out there about how we were going to press the reset button and make everything, better and more sustainable and less less over-tourism and so on, and actually that really hasn't been done very much. A little bit it has, but the World Economic Forum just put out a white paper, by the way, if anybody, that's a resource, if anybody's looking for it, called 10 Principles for Sustainable Destinations, charting a new path forward for travel and tourism. It just came out, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. Very interesting. The one thing that bugs me with these surveys, and also UNWTO just put out some really interesting points the last couple of days, is there's a lot of assertions and a lot of statements about how we should improve this and how we should do that, but there's no metrics, there's no actual, there's no target point. So it's not like we need to achieve this figure within a certain amount of time, and we don't know where we're coming from and where we're going to. So I think someone needs to sit down and really put a lot more thought into what exact targets should we have with these things. It's great to say we're being more sustainable. Doesn't mean anything at all, actually, that we're more sustainable.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Yeah, is it enough, and what are the benchmarks?
So we need to have benchmarks, and that to me is the thing that we need to work on.
I'm going to take a slightly different approach, and I like to see immediate change, and that explains a lot about my personality. So I'll use myself as the example, but there were 9 of us in South Africa, and the rhinos, we all hear about the elephants. I actually saw a pangolin, which looks like an artichoke, but a gecko. But the rhinos are being dehorned for the rhino horn. And what we did is we did a dehorning one morning, and it was with the doctors, and it was safe, and it saved its life. The next day or 2 days later, next camp, we went and we saw the canine unit that had Garmin watches, like a Garmin watch to run or play golf with, around their collar to help track. And that became sustainable change. And you could see the difference in the local areas to actually help the rhino, have the dogs, help the bad guys. Then we went to the school to see where 95% of them went into tourism. And one of my recommendations to guests is whether they're going to have their sheets changed every 3 days or their towels changed every day, I make the recommendation if you're spending $1,000 or $2,000 a night, I would encourage you to donate that to something locally. And I've been starting to work with some of the larger tour operators, the A&Ks, the and Beyonds, et cetera, to show how that can happen. So you're not only experiencing it to make the land as beautiful with its natural ecosystem for generations to come, you're participating. And these are clients who have money, so giving them a quantitative difference, much like you'd tip someone this on a cruise, or you'd tip a guide like this, you're giving them a guideline to give back. So I look at it from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's a very tangible example, I think, of how in tourism you can make an impact, whether great or small.
Just another point as well is that I think something that is happening and that's very important. I was at a conference in February about, we were talking about this before, about urban development, urban hotel development. It's very, I wouldn't say easy, but it's easier to make a green, in inverted commas, hotel outside the city where you can put a lot of, but this conference was all about biodiversity in the city, biodiverse city. And we're seeing really an evolution, very much like Singapore has done already, into greening the cities, but the hotel industry really has to work on that very hard as well. And I just saw a very good example with the Dusit Central Park in Bangkok. They're creating an 11,000 square meter park on their rooftops, which is, to me, that's fabulous. So there is some good news happening, and there are good things being done, but I think we really need to focus on having some clear target points.
Yeah, it's really good observations. Well, I want to wrap up with just kind of one more question. So Jennifer, of course, doesn't miss her flight, but actually maybe a little bit more open-ended. So just thinking, and we've talked about opportunities, trends, DEI, sustainability, and I'll start with you, Alonso. Do you have just any kind of last comment or last point you want to leave with the audience, and pick your favorite?
No, I think that it's an exciting time to be in the industry. We're starting our next project in Sevilla. Sevilla has been named one of the best luxury destinations in the world recently, and it has a lot of potential. This is a never-ending story. You know, it's fun. Things are always evolving. You're finding new stuff to do every day. So we're very excited to be part of the industry. There are some challenges, particularly now in terms of integrating the youngsters, you know, and how we can take advantage of the talent that is out there that are still maybe not convinced of all the good things that we have in the industry. You know, the pandemic having had a lot of hotels closed and travel suspended, didn't allow for all these people to start their careers or their experience, or, you know, they lost touch with, you know, what providing services. And so I think we need to recuperate a little bit of that time. I don't think it's going to take that long, but, you know, there might be a little bit of hiccups here and there in the meantime. So other than that, we're excited.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Richard, any last thoughts?
Yeah, just one thing that I think is really impacting the industry still in Europe. I'm talking about outbound Chinese tourists. We were talking earlier about Chinese tourists outbound. I think there's going to be, we're going to wait much longer than we thought we were going to wait for Chinese tourists to start traveling again. Why? Because tourism was a drain on the Chinese economy. There was the balance of trade in terms of tourism up until COVID. It was one of the only points in China where they had a negative balance of trade. They were losing a lot of money to the outside. Since COVID, that's not happening anymore. All that money is staying in China. The government thus has a huge incentive to keep those people and keep the travelers in China, keep the borders closed, and don't let them travel for as long as possible. So my bet is that it's going to be a very long time before we're going to see high-end Chinese travelers traveling again. That's impacting the luxury goods business in Europe. It means companies like Galeries Lafayette is now going to China. So when you know, they're moving into Shenzhen and opening a huge store there. 70% of all sales used to be to Chinese high-end travelers of luxury goods were outside China before. Now it's the opposite. And I've been looking at some metrics saying that it's never going to get back to 70% again. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind, particularly for people that were counting on those Chinese tourists before.
Really interesting insights. Jennifer, any last thoughts before you head back to New York?
Last thoughts would be, I can't wait until global tourism comes back to 1 in 10 jobs. I think we forget that, and the power to make a difference in so many people's lives. WTTC says it's typically 54% of all businesses in travel and tourism are women-owned, minority-owned. It goes back to the DEI. They were leading without honestly even intending, and the consequences of the last 2 years have been very hard. I would say honored as a woman to continue to lead in this industry, and I sort of see the natural progression from being Val's oldest daughter and Kimberly's sister to having the opportunity to work with some of the strong women at Chase in the connected commerce. And I think a perfect way to close something like this is travel and tourism has the power to unite people. And we don't look at it as just an airline ticket, a cruise cabin, a hotel room, or a fabulous guide. But life is precious, and I look forward to all of our travelers having the opportunity to explore the world again.
Yeah,
and thank you.
I love ending on that thought. And at IGLTA, we kind of always say, like, travel, we're building bridges between communities, between countries, between places of, you know, differences, and that's a wonderful way to end. So I just want to thank the audience, thank you, Fabian, and the rest of the team, and thank you to the amazing panelists. Please join me in thanking them.
Well done.